Hi. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Hello, viewers. Today I am in conversation with author and artist Nancy Stohlman. I'm delighted to welcome Nancy Stohlman in my online book club where I love to be in conversation with authors and artists. Can you please tell about yourself, Nancy, and how you got where you are today as an author as well as an artist? And please show your books or series to my viewers.
I will. Um, I did. I brought some books, and I have a new book coming out. So I'll start with my first book, which is Searching for Susie. This
Mm-hmm.
is a book club favorite. Um, and this, let me back up a little bit. So I've been writing for a long time, as most of you probably are familiar with, and from childhood, read everything I could get my hands on, of course, and started writing seriously in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent a lot of time just practicing and practicing the form. I think that a lot of people they want to just write a novel and have it be a success. And I really believe that, particularly when writing a novel, when writing something a little bit longer, um, you need to get used to the novel form. It's a long, extended form. You have to really um, practice. So if somebody would have told me I had to write some practice novels, I might have been
Mm-hmm.
upset. But I wrote a couple practice novels. I really learned the form, and then I kind of got myself to the place where I understood the novel form well enough that I actually could then figure out what it is that I needed to say in that form. So that whole process took about 10 years, and I've heard a lot of people talk about the 10,000 hours that it takes for you to become proficient or a master at anything. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really true that 10,000 hours that, um, which breaks down to about 10 years of practice and failing and getting up and trying it differently and trying something new and doing it again and doing it again. I think when we think about playing an instrument, that makes sense that it would take about 10 years to really become good at something. But the same thing goes with writing. It takes a while. So I would say for anybody who's new, enjoy the process. This is a whole beautiful lifetime of creativity that you have in front of you. So don't be um, anxious or worried that you don't have it perfectly in the first year. Be
So,
like trying to
Nancy,
take photos. Go ahead, yes.
you have coined the term flash fiction. What is that?
Let me clarify. So I didn't coin the term flash fiction, but I did coin the term flash novel. So they're a little
Okay.
bit, yeah. Flash fiction is, and I have edited a bunch of flash fiction journals. This is my new book. I have to print out a copy of it.
Okay.
It's coming out. So this is the Vixen, Scream, and Other Bible Stories. This is my new flash fiction collection. Flash fiction is very, very short, compressed stories. So usually we consider a flash fiction story to be about 1,000 words or less.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I work with flash fiction, the more that I realize that 1,000 words is pretty long. And that once you
Mm-hmm.
get really into that compressed form and you really start embracing it, um, you find that most of your stories will land well below 1,000 words, 500, 300,
Mm-hmm.
600, 200, sometimes 50 words. So
Mm-hmm.
really amazing um, form. I'm teaching a workshop right now around flash fiction as well, an online workshop. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really amazing form for people in any genre, doing any kind of writing, to really
Mm-hmm.
learn how to compress your work and to really
Mm-hmm.
look at your own word choices, what is really necessary, what can you imply, so that's flash fiction. I did coin the term flash novel, which came out of my work with flash fiction. I had been writing, like I said, novels for many years, and I
Mm-hmm.
had been writing flash fiction, and suddenly it seemed to me that what had happened to the short story by having flash fiction kind of transform it was the same thing that I wanted to happen to the novel. That the
Mm-hmm.
novel as a form could really grow from that compression and could really go through that same metamorphosis to create a
Mhm.
whole different kind of novel, not a novella, but a whole different kind of novel. And I'm seeing it really catch on, so it makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm. So, like in this flash novel, the term you have coined, so is it becoming, this genre is becoming very popular these days, or what it is, and how it helps authors? Like it compresses the whole material, and then it like shortens the time, or what it does, how it is advantageous to an author.
You know what I like to think about a flash novel is a little bit like a movie. So when we
Okay.
sit down to watch a movie, we just
Mm-hmm.
sit down and engage, you know, and we
Mm-hmm.
sit down for 2, 3 hours if it's a long movie, let's say, and we just go into that world. And we go maybe very quickly. There's very little fluff in a movie. You know, we have a certain amount of time, so we just kind of go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the flash novel the same way, and people do it differently. Some people want to write flash fiction type chapters. Some people just want to use that compressed narrative. I don't think there's one way to do it, but the reader has that same experience of kind of entering the book and
Mm-hmm.
staying there to the end, pretty much. Most flash
Mm-hmm.
novels, you can read them in a day or two, you know, or a couple of hours, and you
Mm-hmm.
really kind of go in, you see the end even as you're beginning. So, unlike the experience of a very long novel where you might hang out in that world for months and months, a flash
Mm-hmm.
novel is a very compressed, distilled experience that takes us
I
through
see.
a whole range of emotion, a whole entire plot arc in a very short time. So it's a whole different experience. I love it.
Uh-huh. So like writing it also takes like less time or more time or what it is?
Uh, that's a that's a great question. I wouldn't say it takes less time. Um,
Okay.
and that's one of the things about both flash fiction and flash novels is that just because they're shorter doesn't mean they're easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I would almost say that at the beginning they're harder because it's a little bit like you know, if you have a giant canvas and you can paint the Mona Lisa, um, that's one experience. If you have to then paint the Mona Lisa on a grain of rice, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole other experience. And so
Yeah, that's
I
a very
wouldn't
good
say,
example.
yeah, it's not easier and I wouldn't say it's faster. And sometimes, as a poet might know, poetry and flash fiction share a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
compression. Sometimes you can work and work and work over one sentence, and it might
Mm-hmm.
take 6 months to get that sentence right. So when you're writing flash fiction or a flash novel, you really look at your work at that same level where you really are looking at each word, each sentence, what can go, what really needs to stay. And so the result is small, but getting there might have taken just as long. So
So you have your other books to show to the
I
viewers?
do, yeah. So I have a couple other books to show. Well, this is the flash fiction. This is a compilation that I did with Fast Forward Press. So this actually was one of the only, is the only book that I know of that was ever nominated for a Colorado Book Award as flash fiction. So it's really cool.
Wow.
And it's a compilation. And then this is my book that came out last year, The Monster Opera.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another flash novel, and this came from a press called Bartleby Snopes, and they actually started a whole flash novel series, which was really cool. I was really excited about
Yeah.
that. They published my book and a couple other books as well as flash novels. The Monster Opera is really cool because it's a multi-genre work. It's there. I worked with a composer named Nick Bushess, and he actually composed music. We actually took pieces of the opera and turned them into arias. We
Mm-hmm.
took pieces of the opera and turned them into kind of classic recitatives, the back and forth of opera singers. And staged it, and we've actually performed it. So I think of the Monster Opera as a book and also as a performance piece and also as music, which I'm hoping that Nick Bishop actually puts the music out by itself as well. It's fantastic. And I
So
have a
how,
really great little clip on YouTube. If you look up the Monster Opera trailer, we did a little
okay.
bit that shows some of the music and stuff. So.
Okay, very nice. So, like, do you think there is some connection between an author and a music composer, or vice versa?
Hmm. I think that there is connection between a writer and every other kind of artist.
Mm-hmm.
In most of my classes that I teach, I'm always bringing in examples of music or examples of painting. I really think that all artists are doing the same thing. They're just doing it
Mm-hmm.
in different ways. So just as I would say there's a connection between a novelist and a poet, let's say, I think
Mm-hmm.
the same connection exists between a writer and a painter, a writer and a musician. I think that we're all really trying to figure out the best way to express our version of the world. And that's kind of what we're doing here. And whether that comes out as a poem, whether it comes out as flash fiction, whether it comes out as a sonata or
Mm-hmm.
as a sculpture, um, we're really we are really drawing from that same well. And I think it's really important for us to see ourselves as an artistic community and not working alone because we really need each other. I think that a lot
Yes.
of artists like to compete.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the genres, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of, there's not enough readers or fans to go around, so we really have to fight for those. But I don't believe that. I think it's our job to make art for everybody and support each other. And yeah, absolutely. I
Very
don't know
well
if
said.
that's the question.
Yeah. So does it come like the music compositions you do or your writing, does it come on a schedule? You write on a schedule, like some authors and artists, they write on a schedule, while on some it just comes to them anytime. What kind are you?
Both. I write on a schedule, but it's not a strict schedule. But I do think it's important to have some sort of regularity.
Mm-hmm.
Certain times of the year, I might find myself writing, every day around 4 o'clock or some. In the summer now, I like writing in the mornings. But I do think it's important to touch your art every day because if
Mm-hmm.
you don't touch it every day, then it becomes a stranger to you. And then,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are some writers who will not work in their art for a week or 2 weeks, and then they'll say, okay, all day Saturday, I'm going to write and I'm going to catch up. But what
Mm-hmm.
happens on Saturdays is you have to spend half of Saturday refamiliarizing yourself with your art. It's like a
Yes.
relationship. So I think it's important to touch your art every day, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes. I think that 15 minutes accumulates and creates kind of a constant conversation so that even when you're not working on your art, you are working on it in your mind and everything around you is informing it. So
So
then, yes, on the other hand, I get inspiration all the time from random things, but I sit down regularly every day and and touch my art. So.
So are you trying Hollywood or something, because I went to your website and it is beautiful, I saw one of the trailers also and it is beautiful. So, like, are you thinking of composing for Hollywood or something like that?
I'm really staying open right now. I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
at this place in my career where I are you there? I'm at this place in my career where I feel like I'm not exactly sure what is coming next for me. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that I could make, and probably everybody, is kind of having a really set idea of this is how it's going to happen. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and this is how it's all going to be laid out. And so then when things don't maybe follow that exact pattern, then we feel like we failed somehow. So I really feel like where I'm at in my career is being really open to all the opportunities that might show up at my doorstep that I couldn't have put in place, and just recognizing that all of these are perhaps the next step. Like just before I got on this call, I was asked to judge a flash fiction contest that they're doing in New York, and I said, yeah, great, let's do it. That's the kind of thing that just shows up for me that I couldn't necessarily have said, oh yes, and then I'm going to do this and this. So I'm really at that place where I'm staying open to opportunities and really um, feeling my way forward. So who knows where it's going to end up? But I'm saying yes. So.
So, Nancy, you have done like most of your books is gone through traditional publishing, or but do you do self-publishing also, or just traditional publishing?
I've only done traditional publishing, but I've worked with small publishers. So I've had really great experiences working with small publishers. Um, because I dabble in a lot of art, small publishers will let me put my fingers in the cover design and let me kind of write some of the cover text and all these sorts of things that get taken away from you when you get to a bigger publisher and they've got the marketing people that really want to do it their way. So I really enjoyed being able to co-create a book with a smaller publisher, which is probably similar to self-publishing. I do a lot of manuscript editing and coaching for writers, and so I coach a lot of writers who are self-publishing, and so that process of really getting to be in control of all the stages is similar. I've liked going the traditional publishing way because I think the more people invested in your work, the more people who are on board to help you, the better. And I've never really wanted to take that entire package on my shoulders alone. So I've been really fortunate, and I feel really grateful to all the people in the small publishing world that have really been on that ride with me. So
I see. So, what inspired you to become an author and an artist?
Nancy Drew? I don't know. I think as a child, I just got lost in books, and books were my portable, magical fantasy world wherever I was. I remember being 7 and being on a long car trip, and like a 7-year-old, oh my goodness, 2 hours in a car, and then I read a book for 2 hours, and suddenly we were there. And I realized that books were this sort of alchemical world that we got to experience, dip in and out of. I just fell in love with all the different worlds that I went to in books and started writing my own books, books very young. I actually tried writing a play when I was about 9.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a musical. It was Superman, the musical.
I see.
Yeah, really bad. But then I started writing in my journal, and I would really recommend journaling for writers, not because anything important comes out of the journal, but it's a little bit like a yoga practice, where you just have to stretch those muscles every day. And journaling to me is writing that doesn't count. So I can say whatever I want. It can come out however it likes to. I get to clear my head. Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way talks about that brain dumping, where you kind of get all that stuff out so that you can get to your real inspiration. So I have journaled daily for a long time. I have closets full of notebooks. And do you want to see my new notebook? I love this.
Yes.
This is my White Snake album cover notebook. I love it. But I fill a notebook probably once a month, and yeah, I've done education, schooling. I have an MFA, but a lot of what I do to become a better writer is I read a lot and I write a lot.
So, Nancy, what obstacles came on your way, and how did you overcome those?
Hmm. um, Well, I think impatience is a huge obstacle. I think we want to be good at it now. We want to get paid for it now. We just don't know why it's not good yet. And I think realizing, that's one of the beautiful things about writing. When you think about other artistic forms like ballet, let's say, if I was wanting to be a ballet dancer, there's a really limited, finite amount of time that you can really be a ballet dancer, and then there's an end to that. Writing, different. With writing, you can really have a career as long as your mind is working. You can have a career until the day you die. And so I think I feel really fortunate that that I get my entire life to get better and better with this. And so I would say impatience is a huge obstacle that I've had to overcome, and one that I see a lot in people that I work with. There's this sort of hurry up and edit my manuscript so that I can be on Oprah, mentality, and it's just so much more organic than that. And I think impatience and that lack of long-term vision is a real problem for a lot of writers. Other obstacles, I've been really fortunate. I have a lot of great support. I have amazing writer friends that I bounce things off of and have community with. I think having a writerly community is a really important thing as well, whether that's a book club or an online group or an in-person group or a reading series. I run a reading series here in Denver, a flash fiction reading series. We're going to meet up tomorrow night, and it helps to remember that you're not alone. So overcoming, I think, that feeling of being really isolated is a major thing as well.
I see. Wonderful. So do you have like a literary agent or you work directly with the press?
I'm working directly with the press right now. My latest book, The Vixen Scream, I actually entertained the idea of a literary agent. I was contacted by literary agents, and it just wasn't the right fit. I really wanted to continue with the small publisher that I had committed with, and he's wonderful. It's Pure Slush is the name of the press that's publishing The Vixen Scream, and but it opened my eyes to the possibility that it might be time for me to work with an agent. I'm talking with her now about a craft book on writing flash fiction, and I've got another book in process now of flash fiction as well. So it will probably be something that's going to be happening here in my future.
But like for some authors, like for their first novel, they are looking for a literary agent, and it is very hard to find literary agents. So do you think like the first time authors should find a literary agent, or what your advice would be to them?
My advice is that when you really look at the end result of a book, so let's say for sake of argument that you're a first-time novelist, you get a literary agent, you get published with a big house, they're pretty much going to expect you to market your book. So the days when publishing houses, do all your marketing for you and you get to sit in your dark room in your house and drink scotch, like those days are over. So regardless of who publishes your book, you need to be prepared to be visible, to be promoting it, to be in social media, to be making connections. All of these things are the same. So my advice for writers is to start doing that. The funny thing about agents is that agents really aren't interested in your work until you're almost at the point where you don't need them, until you're almost at the point where you have created that following, where you have published, I think publishing excerpts is really important for a first novel. You really want magazines to publish little pieces so that you can say, here, and here has published my work from this book. I would say do everything that you would do even if you didn't have the literary agent, and then let them find you. Because that's what really happens nowadays, is that the agents will find the people that are already out there really doing what it takes to get their books out there. So if you think that the agent is going to solve the problem of having to market yourself, it's definitely not the answer.
And what do you think, like most of the publishing houses, they ask in their submissions that you should have these many speaking engagements, like that is a very common thing. So how do like people who are not very popular but they want to write, how would they find a speaking engagement,
Well, I think one of the great things about what's happened in the publishing industry is that it's kind of broken open the possibilities of how we do things now. So I think each book and each author is different, but you want to think about um, why am I the best person to write this book? What is it about me, whether it's my experiences, whatever it is that makes me the best person to write this book? And then think about who might need to hear that from you. So, for instance, if you're writing a fictional book and one of your characters is in the military, well, then maybe you want to speak to veterans. Maybe you want to speak to other people in the military. If you are writing a nonfiction book, certainly you want to think about who are your readers. I think that a lot of people aren't sure who their readers are. They say, well, I've written this book, and I'll say, well, who are your readers? And they'll say, well, everybody's my reader. But everybody's not your reader.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, and I'll use the example of music. Let's say, for instance, that I am going to start a country western band, and I'm the greatest country western singer that you've ever seen, right? Well, if you don't like country western music, it really doesn't matter how good I am. You're not my fan, right? So you might love me, you might be my best friend, you might want me to succeed, but you're not really my true fan, because my true fan would be somebody that loves country western music, right? So I think it's the same with books. We have to ask ourselves, who loves the kind of thing that I'm writing, and find them. They're the people that you want to talk to. And not assume that just because your book might be fantastic, that it's the right book for everybody. It is the right book for some people. You just have to find them. And I think that's the piece that intimidates people. Well, how do I find my readers? And it's trial and error in a lot of ways, you know, like, well, who keeps responding? Who buys it? Not outside of my family. Who buys it? You know, who writes reviews of it? Are they all in their 20s? Are they all, you know, 40-year-old farmers? You know, what is the similarity here? And how can I find more of them? More people like that.
It's very nice, Nancy. So how many books up till now you have written?
Um, well, my name is on 7 books. 4 of them are anthologies, which means I've co-edited them with other people, and they're collections of stories. And then 3 of them are my own books that I would say that I've written completely and authored. So 7 as to this day, and it feels really good to say that, you know.
Yes,
And that doesn't
yes.
count the practice ones. So I've got a couple practice ones in the drawers, but yeah, it feels really nice to have books that I can hold in my hand and show people. So it's a great feeling.
It's wonderful. It's so nice to know you, and thank you so much, Nancy, for your valuable time, and thank you so much, for giving your valuable time, Nancy. Thank
Oh,
you, and bye bye.
bye bye.